Football fans and Mean Green fans, Sonoy Valente here once again with a Mean Green show tonight, joined by Brett Vito from the Denton Record Chronicle. We're going to jump into this North Texas Navy game and get Brett's perspective on how he thinks it's going to shake out. But before we get into all of that, guys, you already know the drill. If you're a fan of college football or G5 football, consider hitting that like and subscribe button because that's truly all that we talk about. Okay, Brett. Well, kind of, I guess maybe a fourth of the way through the season. How's coverage been this season so far?
Yeah, it's been good. We've had some fun stories and had some exciting games and some good things happen and good stuff to write about. That's always what you're looking for. So it's been a pretty enjoyable season so far. The one thing you always feared going in is, or going into any kind of season like this, is that everything blows up and then your fans are just like throw their hands up and are like, well, I'm not reading about this team anymore. That's the thing you always feared. So we've avoided that. That was nice.
It was close, but yeah. So, from your perspective, how do you feel about this North Texas team as they move into conference play?
I think they've done some good things. I you look back on it and you're like, and you think about, man, what if they would have gone to Chandler Rogers at quarterback, earlier in the season? You kind of wonder about, okay, well, you went to this, you ditched your scheme this year that the previous staff used to go to a 3-3-5, and then that hasn't really worked out the way they hoped it would. So, I mean, you kind of wonder if things could have gotten even better. But I mean, to be 2-2 at this point with a new staff, and the fact you had to play Cal, a game you were never going to win, I think 2-2 isn't the worst outcome you could have had.
Kind of leads me to my next point. I mean, do you anticipate that this Mean Green defense and Coach Capone will stay in the 3-3-5, given that they're going against a triple option, or do you anticipate some at least four-man front? I mean, what are your thoughts there defensively that the Mean Green will come out as?
Well, we did ask that. I did ask that question today. That's the obvious thing to ask at the press conference, because if you look back at the past, I mean, there were years when North Texas played one of the service academies where they just pretty much abandoned their base defense and went to something completely different in the hopes that they could, play a little bit better against Army. And that was the one complaint. I forget which staff it was, but I think it was Luttrell, and they had to play one of the service academies, and they had to abandon their base defense, and the complaint was afterwards, doesn't do us any good. We have to take essentially a whole week out of the year to adjust to this, and we just don't want to do this anymore. Don't want to play the service academies anymore. So it is something that coaches are not particularly fond of. But when we asked the question this week about it, he was saying that they're not going to abandon what they do in the 3-3-5 scheme, but they've got a lot of different things that they can do. They've shown the willingness to go to a four-man front, so they'll do some of that. They'll run blitz them. They'll do a bunch of different things and try to throw the kitchen sink at them and see if maybe they can find something that's going to work.
Why do you feel? I know without maybe the obvious answer, but I mean, from your point of view, why do you feel like this defense has struggled so much with stopping the run specifically?
When they've done this, they've gone to the 3-3-5 scheme in the past. I mean, college football is cyclical, but new staffs come in, they have new ideas, and there's only so many ways to skin the cat, right? So you end up going to these different defenses and different offensive philosophies over the years, and they've been in it before. And the thing that Morris said about it was, this was a scheme that gave him a lot of problems when he was an offensive coordinator, and I respect that. I think there's a lot to be said for that. And they've used it to a lot of success at Iowa State. The thing that I questioned about it, and this is, I'm not a coach, but I'm just a guy that covers college football and have for a long time. The question I've always had about this scheme, and I've said this before, is I think that's the kind of scheme you need very specific players to make work. And those specific types of players are incredibly hard to find. They're not, the kinds that you just, that come around every day. I mean, if you want to make a 3-3-5 work, you really need one of those big, name from the past, Deion Noville type defensive tackles to stick in the middle, or at least one that's, a 300-pound guy, ideally a 330-pound guy that's super athletic and active, can hold up at the line of scrimmage. You have to have defensive ends that can hold up against, combination blocks and things like that. Well, those guys are all, your 280, 290 pound defensive ends. And then you need, you're playing 3 linebackers out there. So you've got to have some linebackers with some pretty good size that can tackle and take on offensive linemen that come up to the second level. And then you need a bunch of secondary guys that can, run and tackle and play in space and, ideally be good man coverage type players. Well, I mean, those are the types of players that are the absolute hardest to find. You just don't find a lot of 330-pound nose tackles wandering around the streets. You don't find a lot of, 280, 290-pound defensive ends that are quality players, and then bigger linebackers are harder to find. That's why to me, it seems like that's why a lot of programs go to 4-3 or playing a different system. It seems to me like, when you're playing a 3-3-5, it just seems like the players you're trying to find are a little bit harder to get your hands on. And that's just my perspective. I'm sure there are plenty of coaches that would disagree with me on that, but to me, that's the one thing you kind of wonder about.
I want to get your take on this. So I've asked a few people, and you were there obviously with Morris's inaugural press conference and everything. And he said he's going to bring a brand of football that's exciting to watch and this, that, and the other. I don't anticipate he wants to be in a lot of needed high scoring affairs, being that, his defense is allowing a lot of points. But do you think that if that's just the MO for this year, a lot of, late game shootouts, do you think that is something that the fans will buy into and like, and just the thrill of it? I mean, do you think it's good for the Mean Green brand?
Well, I thought he did a terrific job at his press conference, and
He did. I agree.
I mean, what did coaches say? I mean, we've gone through this, this new coach thing. I've gone through it at multiple schools at different places in here since I've stuck around forever. But what does the coach always say? Do you ever heard a coach come in and say, you know what, we're going to play an absolutely boring brand of football, but we think it's going to win? And that, they all come in and say that we're going to play an exciting brand of basketball. We're going to play an exciting brand of football. I mean, what else are they going to say? You're trying to build enthusiasm here. And the thing is that none of this matters. If North Texas was, playing, I mean, of course, everybody complained about that in the Daryl Dickey era. Oh, we play boring football. But, I didn't see a lot of hemming and hawing when they were winning conference titles every year, winning national rushing, having individual national rushing champions and going to bowl games. If you win, people will jump on board. So, the thing is if they play, and nobody enjoyed the Todd Dodge era. It was pretty damn exciting because they threw it all the time, and it was a lot of high scoring games, but they get creamed every week. So I mean, the bottom line is you just got to win is the thing. That's what people are going to enjoy. So, that's the deal they're going to have to figure out during conference play is how do we, this is the system we want to run. This is the type of approach we're going to take. How do we make this win enough to make everybody happy and to make ourselves happy?
Okay, so North Texas is coming in, I think they're 5-point underdogs to Navy. What does North Texas have to do to pull off the win and the upset, in your opinion?
Yeah, the interesting thing you mentioned the line is the money's going. I always look just because that you get the general feel for what the public thinks, and I think it's moved to 6 already to the Navy. So the money's going towards Navy. I mean, I think it's just I don't think I'm breaking any news here, but the obvious thing is you got to figure out a way, to stop the run. I mean, they're going to score some points. Navy takes a lot of chances. They're a blitz team. They put a lot of pressure on you. So I would assume that Chandler's been terrific, and I think he'll lead North Texas to some points, but it's not going to make much of a difference if they get absolutely torched in the running game. And the matchup with this game is North Texas is last in the country by a mile in rush defense. I mean, they've got to figure out a way to stop Navy's, or at least slow Navy down from running the ball. And then they've got to, they're going to have to score some points offensively. And I think the big thing that's overlooked, and I did ask about this, is in a low possession game like this, and this is good because Chandler's been really good about it, they cannot afford to have a bunch of mistakes. If they fumble the ball here or there, turn it over once or twice, they may be toast at that point in a low possession game because you're not going to get many chances against against these guys. You're going to have to capitalize on them.
Do you have a score prediction for the game?
I haven't done my prediction column yet. I mean, this is way too close. I'm not going to pick North Texas to lose this game, so I'll probably pick them to win somewhere in the neighborhood of 27-24, something like that. I think that would be somewhere in the ballpark. But it's just what it's gonna come down to is whether Chandler can, avoid mistakes and lead them down the field, and whether or not they make a couple mistakes here or there, and then of course if they just get flat run over where Navy just runs the ball and has a bunch of 12 play 7-minute drives where they just chew up the entire game and score.
Do you think Navy is going to rush for over or under 275 yards?
275? That's probably, well, I mean, that may be the difference in the game there. I mean, if they rush for 275, I kind of have a hard time seeing North Texas figuring out a way to win this game. So, I mean, maybe they rush for under that. Maybe they can hold them to 250 yards. I mean, that would be a monumental achievement for North Texas if they can do that. But since I'm going to pick them to win, I mean, I'll probably you gotta hope or pick them to finish under 275.
How do you feel North Texas fares in the NIL efforts amongst other AAC teams in the American? So they have the Light the Tower collective. They're new under new management from the Houston people, and then the Go Mean Green, they have their thing going, and I think Mean Green Nation may have one. So there's a few avenues there, but how do you feel they stack up amongst the landscape in the conference?
Yeah, that's a good question. You really because it's hard to figure it out, like what exactly these collectives are really putting out there. You always hear that, like SMU, there was that deal a few years ago where they were going to pay like, what was it, $36,000 to every scholarship football and basketball player. I think there's a very wide range there, right? So SMU is probably paying, they're not paying that to all the players. I think that was a little overstated, but they probably are putting out some pretty hefty money to some players, where as some of the other schools in the American are probably pay out significantly less to the players they've got. Now, the thing is I'm not sure where exactly North Texas would compare, but I think you got to give a lot of credit to the people that are trying, right? Because I think it's vitally important. I mean, if you're gonna try to compete in the American like North Texas is going to try to do, I think you're going to have to have an effective effective NIL collective or group of collectives out there that are, doing what's necessary to bring in the players that are that you're going to need to win. And some of these people that were involved that were in the original Light the Tower collective, I'm going to make some calls later this week and do a story on this new batch of guys, which is kind of the same, which appears to be a lot of the same people from the first time around that ended up doing the Light the Tower thing. I think they're doing a lot of good things, and they're making the effort there to make North Texas competitive. I think that's a tough road to hoe in North Texas, especially after North Texas went to the well a lot of times in recent years to some of their big money donors for facility improvement type things. But you do have to respect the effort and what they're doing, and hopefully they'll be continue to be successful in what they're doing.
Okay, last question here before I get you out of here. So, and I want to emphasize how small of a sample size this is. I think he's only 2 starts is what we're or what I'm going to ask you to make this comparison over. But so you've been covering for 20 years North Texas football, and you've seen a long list of quarterback coaches come through, and anyway, where do you feel like Chandler Rogers' skill set falls amongst the North Texas QBs the past 20 years?
Well, I think he ranks pretty high. I think, because we say, okay, he's only been here for a couple of games, but this guy had a track record at Louisiana Monroe, where he was there, and he bounced around. He was at Southern Miss for a while, and then he was at JUCO for a while. But I think if you look at what he did at ULM before he came here, he's got a pretty good track record. Now, if you go down back through the years, I mean, there's been a lot of really good quarterbacks here. Mason Fine was terrific, of course. Derek Thompson was very good. You go all the way back. Scott Hall was really good, things like that. So I think, he would probably, as far as skill set goes, rank fairly high. He's probably a little bit more similar to Scott than probably some of the more recent guys, because he's more of a runner, mobile guy than I think Mason was. But, he's put up some pretty good numbers, and he's doing a really good job. I mean, he could end up being, one of the at least top half. He's going to be at least a top half quarterback in the American. And I think if you're North Texas, you got to be thrilled you managed to pull that out.
Do you think that adds a little more pressure, maybe just for the fans, in this, from the standpoint of, it's possible that North Texas currently has a generational QB, and anytime you get a quarterback like that, you want to maximize, all the efforts. You think being that, it's likely that he's that talented, that it has added some pressure. We got to win with this guy while we have him. I think they only have him this year and next year, I think. I'm not sure if but
yeah, he'll be here 2 years now. I think these guys are in college football. The leash is so short. There's so much pressure to win and things like that. Granted, when you have a generational quarterback, it really helps. But I don't think it makes a whole lot of difference for these guys. I mean, these guys came in and talked a big game like they all do, and said, we want to get to the top of the American in short order and things like that. So I don't think having Chandler is going to ratchet the pressure up any more than it was already. They're going to be under the gun to figure this out and to win games this year. But I mean, the thing is he just gives you a chance. Is he better than than Seth Hennigan and the guy down at SMU and things like that? I don't know. That remains to be seen. But the thing that's great about it is it puts him in the ballpark, right? Where you're not going in there where you're just had such a terrible quarterback situation that you've got no shot. This guy gives them a shot. So whether or not that means they win 4 games in conference play and somehow manage to sneak their way into a bowl, or if he just gets them in the ball, or beyond that, maybe they win even more games than that, or is he good enough to help them at least be competitive, and maybe they fall short of a bowl game? Well, that's the big question here for the next few weeks. But I think going in, if you're a North Texas fan, you got to feel pretty good about the fact you've got a guy that at least gives you a chance.
Okay, so one last Chandler Rogers quiz. I know I said that someone's last one. So he's currently at 7 touchdowns on the year with 2 starts. Do you think Rogers, with his skill set coupled with this offense and the pass heavy offense that this is, do you think he will beat Austin Ani's touchdown record?
What Austin
single season?
Austin threw what was it, 30?
I thought it was 32. Let me see if I can look it up really quick.
I've got the media guide sitting right here. Let's see. We're talking touchdowns in a season.
Yes.
So they've got 8 games left. So if you're thinking about, he's got 7 now, and we're saying the record's 32.
I believe it is 32.
So you're talking he's got to get 25 and 8 in 8 games. So you're looking at 3 a game for the rest of the way. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility. And the thing that I wonder a little bit about is, and this is no knock on him, but they've played, not exactly the roughest schedule here of late, right? They've played, they played Louisiana Tech, which looks like it's not going to be very good this year. They played an FCS team. I mean, the level of competition is going to go up exponentially over the next few games. They've got SMU, they've got Navy's this week. You've got a bunch of teams that are going to be pretty tough for North Texas to compete with and beat. And that's the thing that is going to really tell the tale of whether he'll be able to get there or not. See, here we go. Season, Austin had 34.
34.
Yeah, so that makes so that means he's going to have to average more than 3 touchdowns a game, and that's a big ask.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it could happen, but it wouldn't surprise me either way, right? I could see him actually making it, or I could see him falling a little bit short of that. But the fact you're having that, the fact you're even thinking about it or even talking about it is, pretty impressive, if you ask me. Because that's, who would have thought we would be even thinking about stuff like that?
Yeah.
Touchdowns. Yeah, 34. So I don't know why everybody will be rooting for him.
Yeah. Yep, for sure.
2022. So the 34. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, if he puts up a ton against Navy and some of these other teams, that would go a long way, because you start getting down late in the season. You got Memphis, you got UTSA, you got SMU, which never goes well for North Texas. Tulsa looks like it's better than people thought. UAB is going to be looks like it's better than what people thought. And that's the bottom line with this team. I mean, yeah, they've done pretty well so far, but man, it's going to get a whole lot tougher from here on out.
Yeah, definitely is. Okay, Brett. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Good luck with your travels up to Navy, and looking forward to the rest of the season.
Okay.